Welcome everyone to meeting number 5338. I'm glad you all came today. Could you all please bring your guests up to the mic and introduce them? While you're coming up, I'll thank the greeting line today, which was the Golf Committee. They do very important work. Hi, Morris. Hey, Morris, would you raise that microphone so it's up higher for everybody? Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Steve. My guest is Tony Kim. I call him Tony all the time, but I can't remember his last name. Tony Kim, he's the Vice President at City National Bank and is the branch manager of the branch just up the street here.
Kim's a really hard name to remember. I know, Morris.
And Tony is a prospective member.
I know. Welcome, Tony. Good to see you again. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, President Steve. I'm here today. My guest is Giancarlo Corsilia, who's my son. He's also the grandson of member Vic Corsilia and the nephew of member Tom Bondi.
And before Johnny goes, he's also the nephew of my sweetie pie, Taryn Corsilia. And those of you who are talking, let's listen. Thank you, guys. And it's funny, the golf committee was the greeting line today because the finest round of golf I've ever seen in my life, and I've been playing golf for 60 years, was by Johnny Corsilia a few years ago. And you had to be there to believe it. But Johnny, welcome. He shot about 67, something like that.
Good afternoon, President Steve. I'd like to introduce my dear, dear friend of many years, Ria Wong. Ria is a life coach and spiritual advisor.
Welcome, Ria. We need a lot of that. Thank you. There's plenty of demand. Hi, Deanna.
Today, I have brought my sister, who's almost like my twin, Angel Ellenberger, and she's sitting right over there.
Wow. Welcome, Angel. Welcome. And Mike Conniff is here, and we should have some guests up on the screen on Zoom if things work well.
Right. Thank you, President Steve. Our San Jose State Committee, a new committee, has been in existence for about 2 years. We started a Rotaract Club at San Jose State, and it's now in its second or third year, I guess. And students are very active. They've been here. They were at the gala, and I thank you for your welcoming them. And we have I think we have on Zoom the faculty advisor, Elisa Mattarelli, who is originally from Italy. She was a Rotaractor there she is.
There she is.
She was a Rotaractor in Italy, and she worked on various projects. So when we proposed to her, she's in the College of Business at San Jose State. When we proposed that she be the faculty advisor, which is officially required to have an on-campus organization, she did that. So she worked with us for 2 years and with that Rotaract Club on campus, and just very, very happy to have her join us. I was going to buy her lunch today, but she said she's got conflicts. But nice to have you join us, Lisa. You want to say a word?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. It's a pleasure to work with Mike and with the committee of the San Jose State University with Rotary. And we have a lot of exciting plans for our students and for collaborations between our students and the Rotary Club at San Jose. Thank you very much for this welcoming environment for all of us.
Please come again soon, Lisa, too. Go ahead, Mike.
There's Elisa has a new project on campus. She and another professor, the name of Matt McGuire, are putting together a program starting this fall, and it's an honors program for nonprofits. And she would like to see if some nonprofit members of our Rotary Club would like to work with students on campus in trying to help them make a transition into the world of nonprofits. So will match Rotarians, probably 10 or 12 Rotarians with very outstanding students at San Jose State. Elisa's compadre in that is Matt McGuire. I don't know if Matt made it on the Zoom, but not. But he did not
make it, Mike.
Okay. But at any rate, in a week, we'll be putting flyers on the table to let you know about this honors program in case you'd like to cooperate with Elisa and Matt. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Let us know how we can help.
Thank you.
Bonnie Bamberg.
Hello, President. I'd like to introduce a visiting Rotarian, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Fabulous. You can raise the microphone if you like.
Hi, President.
How are you?
My name is Daniel Valenzuela, Club Rotario Jalostoc, Distrito 4170 en México. Nice to meet you.
Bueno. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Would Deanna Prasai please come up, and Ravinder come on up too? Deanna's going to introduce our newest member, Ravinder Law.
Hi, everyone. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to our very newest Rotarian. He's a dear friend of mine, Ravinder Law. I have known Ravinder for 7 or 8 years now. And what has struck me about Ravinder is his integrity and his hard work and his ethics and his compassion and his dedication to the community. He's just a fierce businessman with so much integrity and ethics. And I just love him with all my heart and soul. He's opened 5 franchises, 4
open now.
4 open now. In the last years, he's been awarded the Business of the Year by the Santa Clara Chamber of Commerce in 2016. He's sat on multiple boards, and when I go into his stores, I can tell that his employees are really well cared for and just decent, hardworking people. And I'm so proud that Ravinder decided to join our club. So with no further ado, Mr. Ravinder Law.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. So my name is Ravinder Law, and first thing I want to do is I want to thank Deanna. Deanna is my sponsor, and not only that, she is just a beacon of light and somebody that I look up to and somebody that really inspires me. So thank you, Deanna, for bringing me in and making me a part of this tremendous organization. I really appreciate it. And also thank you to the people who decided to let me in as well. The basics, I'm married. I've been with my wife 24 years, married 16, 2 kids. I've got a son who's 7, who's my spitting image. I've got a daughter who's 15, and any of you with a teenage daughter knows how that is. I grew up in San Francisco. I grew up in the Bayview, Hunters Point area of San Francisco. Those of you that know that area know it's not a very nice place. Grew up a troubled kid, frankly. Got in lots of trouble, didn't do well in school, and it was tough. It was tough growing up, and life changed at one point, and I came into a teacher and some people that started believing in me, and they saw something in me that I didn't see. So, fast forward a few years, and I went to college. Shockingly, I graduated high school through the will of one strong teacher, and I made it to UC San Diego for software engineering, computer science engineering. Found out pretty quickly that I don't like computer science engineering. So I became a businessman. Like Deanna said, I opened up 4 UPS stores, still growing. We've got 2 in San Jose, 1 in Santa Clara, 1 in Mountain View. And the reason I'm here and really wanted to be part of this, one is the slogan, service above self. I had those people who believed in me and saw something in me, and without their push, I don't think I would be standing here today, maybe not even alive. And, ever since then, I've wanted to give back. I've wanted to help young people that are on the wrong path get on the right path, through inspiration, talking to them and guiding them. So I know that I'm in the right place. The people that I've met so far in this club have just been tremendous people that are inspiring, and I'm just happy to be here. So thank you.
Brian Adams, can you come on up for your Oscar recap? Just saying the word Oscar, I got to laugh. That's kind of interesting. Brian Adams.
I really appreciated your remarks. Welcome, as you would expect, as the head of the UPS stores. That was very well delivered. Don't slap me. All right. Well, what an uneventful Academy Awards, huh? As Jimmy Kimmel has said, that incident, that clip, has been seen more often than the Zapruder film. That's, come on. I thought the age demographic in here would relate to that a little bit better. And I won't say much about, I only have a couple minutes, but I do want to say that unfortunately that incident is pretty much all that people are talking about, as opposed to the real history that was made that evening and the folks who deserve to win the awards they received. So I hope that the takeaway going forward is less focus on the incident and more focus on the folks who deserved to win and deserve their moment in the sun. Well, let's get back to the Rotary ballots. The 40-ish people that voted didn't do very well, including myself, I have to be honest. Nobody accurately predicted 100% of the categories on the outcomes of the categories on the ballot. However, we did have 2 people that only missed 1, and that was pretty good. So we had a tie, and it's not easy to do. So the winners of the awards for Rotary this year are Charlie McCollum. Charlie, come on up, Charlie. And also San Jose City Council member David G. Cohen, who could not be with us today, but show him some love. David is involved. There's a ribbon cutting ceremony at the new fire department, I guess, over near the airport. So Charlie, come on up. And so let tell you, Charlie, what you won, and these folks already know this, but great. Another squatting ovation for Charlie. That's great. So I want to really thank Dan Orloff, who had already committed to giving the winner 2 movie passes, a pair of passes, and a food credit for $25 at the Pruneyard Cinemas, but he was so generous in allowing that to be replicated since we had a tie. So he's offering 2 pair of tickets and a $25 food credit to Pruneyard Cinema. So let's give Dan some love as well. Dan Orloff, thank you. I don't think he's here today. And Charlie, also in here, I've got a couple things from my archives. One is a behind-the-scenes production promotional booklet about the power of the dog, which will take you less time to skim through than the film.
Do I have to?
You don't have to. And the other is a brand new Blu-ray DVD of, ironically, Will Smith's Oscar-winning performance in King Richard. So here you go. Now, the DVD is very easy to play. You just slap it in and hit play. So thank you and congratulations, Charlie.
Do I get to slap him now?
Thank you, Brian. Always a good time. Mike Fulton is coming up. You know, we have a lot of people in this club who do a lot of wonderful work. Get to know Mike Fulton. The things that he's been doing for El Salvador and other people around the world is really an incredible thing. So, Mike Fulton.
This button here. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm here today representing the International Service Committee to give all of you a big thank you, hey, for what our Rotary has accomplished in El Salvador these last 2 years. As you know, the country of El Salvador is extremely poor, 40% living in poverty. The country has serious economic and humanitarian issues, boosted by a 12-year civil war and fueled since by perpetual gang violence, 35,000 gang members in El Salvador. Amid this violence, children can't really escape it. And in the poor rural areas, almost 50% of youth aged 13 to 18 don't go to school. And also those in school, an estimated 60% have no or insufficient access to the internet. Our Rotary has been investing in the youth of El Salvador. I just returned from a 10-day trip representing our Rotary. I went alone, but I did try to recruit Matt Breaker to be my wingman. After about the 8th time I asked Matt, he kidded nervously that he would have to be armed. Well, Matt, your gun wouldn't be bigger than theirs. Our Rotary projects focused on the poor rural countryside between the city of Santa Ana and the Guatemala border. Our partner was the 20-member Rotario Santa Ana. The last 2 years included 2 site trips and our International Service Committee approving $20,000, outside contributions of $22,000. These funds enabled 14 different projects at 6 schools with over 1,500 students and 1 rehabilitation center with 3 locations. This is a list of the kind of projects we completed, but instead of reading this, let me now walk you through most. The first is Association Teleton Rehabilitation. With 3 locations, they provide free rehabilitation services to the poor, providing these services to adults as well as children with upward of 160,000 sessions a year. Our Rotary gave them 30 computer tablets to launch a tele-rehabilitation program that today serves 1/3 of all their patients. You know, look at this slide. Behind that tablet is a black computer. Amazingly, none of the computers in the center have a camera or audio. So our tablets are all they have, but now it's enough. Here's an actual physical therapy session conducted from our tablet.
Recto primero hacia arriba. Vamos a ver. La rodilla recta y vamos arriba. 1. Vamos a...
Here's a speech therapy session with our tablet.
Ballena. Eso, muy bien. Botella.
La Criba School had only a dirt playground a year ago, but they had a dream for a covered, lighted play court for both the school and their local community. We financed that dream, and the school parents constructed it. Here's the completion. And here's the grand opening celebrated by the school and community when I was there. This and the next 3 slides are of San Rafael School, where we paved this dirt patch, creating a new playground. There it is. More of it. And a trampoline. I don't know if I'd advise a trampoline, but they advised a trampoline. We also constructed school handicap access to make the school accessible to 1 disabled teacher and disabled students. Next slide is La Cristalina School. They asked us for computers and to connect them with satellite internet. We accomplished both. We also provided internet service to San Nicolas School with its over 200 students. At Los Almeidas Canton School, we gave them musical instruments 2 years ago to start a school band. This year, we followed that up with new guitars for the music program, and we also gave this school internet access. At Los Tablan School, the families are extremely poor. There's gang activity around them, and I asked the principal if the gang activity entered the school grounds. And she told me no, they wouldn't dare because they all used to go to school here. No matter the little money families and children have, they find a way to have fun. An issue with this school was that their lone bathroom was up a hill 100 yards away. Can you imagine the teacher concerns when a 5, 6, or 7-year-old needs to leave the classroom alone to head up the hill? So we approved a new bathroom right outside the classroom, now in progress, plus new classroom tables and chairs. Here we also approved a new playground, also now under construction. You know, so from the kids of Salvador, a big thank you to our Rotary. But at the end of my trip, I took a first-time visit to a mountain school, 160 students, grade 1 through 9.
Por aquí se viene así.
Sadly, this remote school has no water to drink, no water to wash their hands, no water to go to the bathroom. They do have a vision to run a 2-kilometer pipeline buried under the road up to a higher mountain stream. I hope a year from now I can stand in front of you and say the school now has water and their lower residential community will have it soon. Thank you.
Should make us all proud to be Rotarians. Steve Kaplan, come on up. We're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous now. So all of you think about where were you on March 20th, 1976. Some of you weren't even alive, like Dominic. I don't know. How many of you weren't alive? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a whole bunch of people. So Kaplan, what were you doing on March 20th, 1976?
I was going, I believe, to my first official Rotary meeting.
What do you guys think of that? 46 years in Rotary for Steve Kaplan. He doesn't look a day over 91, too. Steve, tell us your favorite Rotary story of all those years.
Well, I was having a conversation here a little earlier that and this isn't necessarily the favorite story, but it is reminiscing. The culture of this club really has stayed the same. I was asked the question if it was how different it might have been. I said 50 years ago. It's not quite 50 years. And it's a fantastic organization that has continued, when this last presentation that we just had has continued to just do absolutely amazing things. And I've been a proud member for all that time.
Well, Steve's an amazing friend, an amazing Rotarian, so would you all give him a round of applause, please? Thank you. Next up, one of our people who wasn't born in 1976, Dominic Urrutia. Come on up, Dominic is chair of the golf committee and can hit the hell out of a golf ball, and he's going to give you guys a little update.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to tell you about our golf committee, which I think has a lot of great energy right now. And we have a goal to get out there for an outing every couple of months. The last time we played was in February, and we had 24 golfers out at Cinnabar Hills, and everybody had a great time. And that's really the purpose of the committee, is to organize these golf outings, go have a good time, meet new people, and get to know each other better. You don't have to be a part of the committee to play in these outings. We'll advertise it in the bulletin, so you'll know when we're gonna have them and sign up and come play with us. I'm hopeful that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be able to get out there again. I'm actually looking for some connections right now to some local golf courses or country clubs. So if anyone might help connect us there, come see me. And then lastly, there is a golf volunteer opportunity coming up April 11th through the 13th at the Western Intercollegiate Golf Tournament hosted by San Jose State. So if you love golf and you want to volunteer, you can come talk to me about that as well. Thank you.
Mark McKenna, you want to come up? Mark's going to give us a very brief update about the carbon offset survey that's going to happen.
So I have 3 quick announcements, and he's given me a minute, so I'm going to be very fast. First, the Climate Action Committee has bought some trees and given them to the Russo McEntee Academy, and they'll be planting them tomorrow. So if you'd like to volunteer, there's a QR code where you can get more information about it. It would be great to have any of you who can have the time and are interested. It should be really a lot of fun. The students are going to be there, and the school is going to train the students on how to take care of the trees. So it's part of a gardening program within the school. Second, we're getting ready to launch the Go Green Team program in the Rotary. We're recruiting members. Recruitment is up until the 15th. If you are interested in it, you can go and complete a survey, that tiny URL, RCSJ Go Green, or out on the table, there's a sign-up sheet. And you can just give me your name, your phone number, we'll contact you. These teams are going to get together 1 hour a month and talk about how they can become more resilient, how their communities can become more resilient, and how they can reduce their carbon impact, and it'll be really fun. So I urge all of you to join in this project that's going forward now. And finally, as President Steve mentioned, we're continuing the carbon offset program. We calculated from the last survey that we generate about 250 to 300 pounds of carbon each meeting. We're doing another survey today to just sort of verify that. So if you haven't filled out a survey already, please fill it out on your way out. And the Climate Action Committee is going to be buying carbon offsets to offset that impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, for the good work. Theresa McCarthy, can you come up here for a moment? Theresa, come on up. Tomorrow is the last day of full-time work for Theresa McCarthy, our office manager. She started in 2004, 1 month after John Kennett started. Can you imagine working with Kennett all those years? John, are you here? Love you, John. The good news is that Theresa will be staying on to do bookkeeping until December, when she's moving to Utah, where her grandson Jackson lives. She'll be in the office most Tuesdays and Thursdays for the rest of the year. We're going to do a really nice send-off in December, but we have a couple things, Theresa, we want to give you that you might like. She's a bird watcher, so we've got a bird in a bag. We've got a Utah bird guide, some binoculars, and some field guides for the Beehive State. And listen to this. During Theresa's time, she's managed 770 meetings, 33 barbecues, 17 galas, 18 presidents, and Stu Gans. So please join me in thanking Theresa for all her service. She passed on the microphone. We all know Theresa does all the work and takes none of the credit, so thank you, Theresa. The district conference is April 22, 3, and 4. There's information everywhere. Please attend if you can and support the district. Is Larry Sukoloff here? Larry, come on up. And Larry is going to introduce today's program, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Today's speakers are a married team who are uniquely qualified to speak about the rise of nonprofit media in the nation and in San Jose. That's Josh Barousse and Ramona Giwargis. They both grew up in San Jose and both are graduates of San Jose State University. They have deep roots in our community. Josh, who is executive director of San Jose Spotlight, has a professional career that includes roles with the Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits and Silicon Valley at Home. He's planned many of Spotlight's community events and helped Spotlight be successful in its initial funding. Ramona is a former student of mine at San Jose State who continues to work with students there. She has worked at newspapers throughout California and Nevada, including the Mercury News. She's CEO of Spotlight and directs its news operations. Reporters from throughout the Bay Area tell me that Spotlight has become an invaluable news source on what's happening in South Bay. Please welcome Josh and Ramona.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here today. Thank you very much to the Rotary Club of San Jose for welcoming us today. It truly is a pleasure to be here. My name is Ramona Giwargis, as Larry mentioned. I am the CEO and co-founder of San Jose Spotlight, and a special thank you to Larry for inviting us to speak today. It truly is a pleasure, and we are going to share some slides here in a moment as Josh introduces himself.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Josh Barousse, co-founder and executive director of San Jose Spotlight, also known as Ramona's husband.
He is. And, you know, we do apologize that we couldn't be there in person today. We really wanted to join you all in person, but we have a 2-year-old who had different plans for us, and really she calls the shots around here. So, but we are very, very excited to be here, and we're looking forward to speaking with you today about the nonprofit news model, which is the fastest growing model in journalism around the country, and how we at San Jose Spotlight as a nonprofit approach news gathering in the era of COVID and misinformation.
First, a show of hands, who here reads San Jose Spotlight? Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for your support. We hope you find our reporting valuable. So San Jose Spotlight is Silicon Valley's first and only nonprofit news organization. Even though it's a new concept here to the South Bay, it's actually been around for more than 10 years in major cities throughout the US, cities like Denver, Detroit, Chicago, Kansas City, Houston, Baltimore, Washington, DC, all have nonprofit publications. And our reporting is centered around government policy and politics. And we're 100% community supported. And our mission is really to spur civic engagement and educate our readers so we are able to strengthen our democracy.
And a little bit about how we started. So as Larry mentioned, both Josh and I are natives of San Jose. We grew up in San Jose. We went to public schools in San Jose. We both graduated from San Jose State University, go Spartans. But I found myself midway in my career in the state of Nevada. I took a job at the Las Vegas Review-Journal, which is the largest newspaper in Nevada. And many of you might recognize the name of the owner of that newspaper. It is Sheldon Adelson. You might know that name because he is a corporate billionaire, a casino mogul, and a mega GOP donor. In fact, he helped fund Donald Trump's campaign for president. He helped fund his inauguration. And while I was a journalist at the Las Vegas Review-Journal, he was pouring millions of dollars into Nevada races, political races that I was covering, including a US Senate race, which was one of the most watched races around the country because they were flipping, or they were attempting to flip a Republican seat into a Democrat one, flip it red to blue. The Nevada governor's race, he was pouring millions of dollars into these races that I was writing about. And we were writing about his 2 businesses, his casinos on the Las Vegas Strip. So obviously, this presented a big conflict to me as a journalist and to my colleagues in the newsroom, being owned by this corporate billionaire who's spending millions of dollars to influence and sway political races that I was covering. So amid all of this, conflict for me, I came across a nonprofit news model called the Nevada Independent, a nonprofit newsroom called the Nevada Independent. And it was founded by the guy you see here on the screen, John Ralston. You might recognize him because he is a national contributor on MSNBC. He's regularly on the program talking about Nevada politics. He's a 30-year veteran of journalism and just, an overall expert on politics in the state. And he started the Nevada Independent 5 years ago, and it has continued to grow. So this was our competitor at the Las Vegas Review-Journal. But I was so excited by the type of work that they were doing. They were doing the type of work I dreamed of doing my whole career, the public service journalism. So I reached out to him. I secretly met with him while I was working at the newspaper, at the competitor. I secretly met with him inside of a Starbucks, tucked away at the Rio Casino and Hotel off the Strip, and basically picked his brain, said, how do we do this? How does it work? How are you funded? What does this look like? Teach me everything you know. And I came home and one day told Josh at our Las Vegas apartment that we share that we should do this in San Jose. We should launch a nonprofit news organization in San Jose. Thank goodness he agreed. And to my surprise and delight, he agreed. And we ended up quitting our full-time jobs in Las Vegas, moving back to the Bay Area, living off of our savings for 6 months, giving our moms a heart attack, I'm pretty sure. But we had so much faith in this and we knew that it would work. And now everything had come full circle because, as you can see in the image on the right there, John Ralston himself flew in from Las Vegas to San Jose at our launch party in 2019 to help us launch San Jose Spotlight. And he continues to serve as a mentor, a friend, and really a colleague in the nonprofit news space. So as Josh mentioned, San Jose Spotlight is very much part of this national trend of nonprofit newsrooms around the country. And we were actually inspired by one of those most successful and nationally recognized nonprofit newsrooms called the Nevada Independent.
Now, when Ramona came home and asked me to take this leap of faith, immediately I said, I'm all in. Now, my background's in government, politics, and nonprofit advocacy. And I have experience running campaigns, fundraising, forging community partnerships. So we're able to really combine forces with Ramona running the editorial side and myself overseeing the business and operations side. When we started the organization, we were able to start our IRS and state filings and get our tax exempt status and form our board of directors. And 3 years later now, we've grown and scaled the organization with 10 employees and an annual budget of $1 million. As for impact, we now reach more than 250,000 readers monthly, and we've garnered support from more than 3,500 donors, 20% of those being sustaining members, meaning that they contribute either monthly or annually. And really, that's our path to long-term sustainability. Through our time, we've received foundational support from national foundations, including the American Journalism Project, the Knight Foundation, and Report for America. We've also received support from local foundations like the Silicon Valley Community Foundation and the Heising Simons Foundation. Also, since January of 2019, we have received 9 state and national awards for our coverage. We mentioned earlier that civic engagement is a core part of our mission. And when we launched, we wanted to ensure that we're really having a two-way conversation with our readers. It's not just top down. And one way we do that is through events. And since launch in January 2019, we've held 30 well-attended events, and most of them are community forums. They're educational forums on timely topics that come before the San Jose City Council or the County Board of Supervisors. We've also held fireside chats and one-on-one interviews with high-ranking officials in Santa Clara County, including Assessor Larry Stone, San Jose Police Chief Anthony Mata, also including our local Congress members, Zoe Lofgren and Ro Khanna. And also in election years, we host candidate forums. So we held our first candidate forum of 2022 just last week. We had a mayoral candidate forum, and that's what you see here in this photo with all with 5 candidates who are participating. And we look forward to hosting more later in both the primary and general cycles.
So now let's talk a little bit about misinformation, the headline of this talk today. Misinformation and polarization really are not new concepts. They've been around for a very long time, but they have been scaled by recent media shifts. One of those is a loss of trust in national news, particularly when readers and viewers and listeners perceive opinion as being masked as news. That leads to a distrust. And of course, false information that was spreading rampantly during the COVID-19 pandemic and continues to spread. There are two types of false information. There's disinformation, which is spread intentionally by people. And oftentimes an example of that is, people blaming racial groups for the virus, for example. And then there's misinformation, which is spread innocently despite being incorrect. And both of those, whether intentional or innocent, both of those are very dangerous to the public, especially as we deal with a national health crisis like COVID-19. And of course, the decline of trust and confidence in the ownership of local newspapers. I shared with you an example of Sheldon Adelson, GOP mega donor owning the Las Vegas Review-Journal, but that is not a unique situation to Las Vegas. I'm sure you can think of several other corporate billionaires who own newspapers. And then, of course, there's the ownership of hedge funds. 60 Minutes did a really good piece a couple weeks ago about a national hedge fund that owns a number of newspapers. And that ownership model, as well as the corporate billionaires, are viewed oftentimes as unaccountable. There's also the economics of news, a revenue decline. It's no secret that there's been a revenue decline in commercial news over the years, especially local newspapers, as ad revenue shifts to digital. And what that really means is that there are, fewer reporters in newsrooms to ask tough questions and to essentially counter fake news or false information with the truth. And a big part of the problem is social media. Social media scaling misinformation. Many of you may know your feeds on Facebook are driven by engagement. So the things you like are the things you're going to see more of. And targeted ads are another issue, and niche groups finding each other on these social media outlets. And there's never been a greater time for local news. Local news is critical to our democracy, and the health of our democracy is contingent on the health of our journalism. So how do we quantify what happens when communities lose local news? Well, numerous studies have found that the erosion of local news is tied to drops in civic engagement and lower voter turnout. When local journalism declines, so does government transparency. That leads to more government corruption. No one is asking the tough questions. No one is following the money. And newsroom employment, unfortunately, in the United States has dropped 26% between 2008 and 2020. That's according to the Pew Research Center. And during this critical year, 2020, when the need for accurate, factual, unbiased information was greater than ever, a third of large US newspapers experienced layoffs in 2020. That's more than in 2019. But there is some good news. And as you can see in that graph up on the screen, that as we saw employment decline in traditional newspapers and US newspapers around the country, there was a growth in digital-only employees. So newsrooms that were digital-only, like San Jose Spotlight, actually saw a 144% increase in employment during that same time period since 2008. Nonprofit news is now considered the fastest growing field in journalism. There are over 300 nonprofit newsrooms around the country, and that number is expected to double in 2025. You might recognize some of those larger nonprofits like Cal Matters, for example, ProPublica. There are a number of wonderful nonprofit news organizations across the state and in our region, including Berkeley Side, Oakland Side, Santa Cruz Local, Voice of OC. Those are some examples of that. And the Institute for Nonprofit News, or INN's 2021 index report shows that during that year of crisis in 2020, audiences in nonprofit sector grew, staffing and coverage expanded, and individual giving surged in many of those nonprofit news outlets. And 2020 generated the fastest growth in the nonprofit news sector since the financial crisis of 2008. And a quick look at how that money is being spent, how it's being earned and how it's being spent. So those graphs at the bottom show you, based on the Institute for Nonprofit News' research, that the majority of funding into nonprofit newsrooms like San Jose Spotlight is coming from foundational grants and foundation support. That makes up about 47% of the revenue pie. And that's a really interesting shift because that wasn't always the case. It traditionally was individual giving that made up the bigger piece of the revenue pie. So I think what that says to me and to folks who are watching this trend is that philanthropic support for journalism is growing. It's growing more than ever before. And people are now finally seeing journalism as a public cause as opposed to a business, a traditional business. And you can see as the operating expenses on the other side there that 62% of the money that comes into nonprofit newsrooms around the country is spent on editorial, meaning it's meant to hire more reporters, more editors, more people on the ground to do this very important work and ask these questions. So how does that affect our news gathering? What does that mean when it comes to news gathering? Well, there are some basic tenets of journalism that are true across the board, whether you work for a nonprofit news organization like San Jose Spotlight or a commercial newspaper, a radio station or TV station. The tenets of good journalism are the same. And those include, verifying information, fact checking, seeking both sides or alternative viewpoints, vetting information and news tips. So we do all of those things that, are the tenets of good journalism. But in addition to that, we also take it a step farther with our news gathering because we're very focused on a mission-driven model, mission-driven news gathering. We're rooted in civic purpose rather than profit. And we're, as mentioned, supported by philanthropic support, and we're independent. That means we're local and independent. We're not accountable to shareholders or investors. That allows us to focus on searching for truth and writing accountability stories. So a big part of what we do is asking those tough questions, holding power to account, investigating systems and not just symptoms. And this is true for nonprofit newsrooms around the country. They produce more in-depth, specialized coverage. And 1/3 of the nonprofit field actually focuses on investigative reporting. So that's a big part of what we do. Another piece of our news gathering process is listening. We listen to the community. We have, as Josh mentioned, a number of forums that we do, events and panels and forums. We also have reader panels. We have 2 different community advisory boards who meet on a regular basis to talk about how we're doing, what stories are we missing, what communities should we be covering, and to really help ensure that we're listening to our community and we're meeting their information needs. As mentioned, we're not driven by page views or clicks, so that allows us to pursue the unique stories that no one else is telling. We also don't have any advertising or paywalls, which means that people from all walks of life can access our public service journalism, whether or not they can pay for it. And the thing I'm most proud of that sets many nonprofit newsrooms apart is the diversity. I myself am an immigrant. I came to the US when I was 3 years old. I was born in Iran in the Middle East. Grew up in San Jose since I was 3, but certainly coming to this country with 2 suitcases and a $20 bill in my parents' bank account, growing up in the Hoffman Viamonte neighborhood, really colored the lens in which I view the world as an immigrant. And so one of the first things we did in our newsroom is we hired reporters who speak Vietnamese, read and write Vietnamese. You saw her earlier in the slide, Tran Nguyen. We also have reporters who speak Spanish. We also prioritize, covering these communities in the most authentic way that we can. In fact, 40% of our newsroom is comprised of people of color. 70% are women, as you can see in the image below. 44% of our board of directors are people of color, and the same percent are women. And this is mirrored throughout nonprofit newsrooms around the country. Half of the nonprofit news executives and 60% of their employees are women, according to the Institute for Nonprofit News. And diversity in newsrooms is important because it generates authenticity. It builds trust with readers who don't traditionally see themselves captured in legacy media. And we're reporting for and not only about those communities of color. We're amplifying those community voices. And our goal in doing that is to make government more accessible to them, which is so critical, especially when you're dealing with a global pandemic, and the need for accurate information is more important than ever.
So that wraps up our presentation this afternoon. And of course, so feel free to visit our website to read our coverage and of course, sign up for our daily newsletter. We'd definitely love to stay in touch. There's our contact information, and also follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And again, we really appreciate it. Thank you, Larry, Steve, and everybody for having us today. And now I would like to open up for any audience questions.
Thank you, Ramona and Josh. Do we have any questions for today? Recording is in progress. Who'd like to come up and ask a question? And a reminder that red badgers can move to the front of the line. So if you got a red badge, bring it on. Octavia, how are you?
Thank you. You just said about something like diversity, equality and inclusion, but I didn't see any of that in your staff member. I didn't see people of color or women of color in your staff member. You just spoke about it right now. So can you tell me more about what you define as diversity, equality and inclusion?
And I apologize, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing, so I might keep coming close to the screen to try to hear, and maybe Steve, I might ask you to repeat it, but the way that I heard that was speaking a little bit about our efforts around DEI and how we ensure that our newsroom is diverse. Was that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a really good question. And what I've learned over the years in journalism is that it doesn't happen by accident. You have to really make a concerted effort to reach out to journalists of color. Luckily, there are many great journalism groups, groups that are centered around Black journalists, Asian American journalists, the National American Hispanic Journalism groups, NAHJ. So we really kind of connect with those folks. In fact, whenever we have a job opening or a job ad, I have a list of people that I send it to, and it includes the leaders of those various journalism groups that are made specifically for people who are, Hispanic, Black, Asian. So it's a concerted effort. We really do try to make sure that we're marketing our jobs to those people, that we're making sure that our applicant pool from the start includes those diverse reporters, and trying to also put those people in positions of leadership as well. I think that's really important too, to have diversity, not just in the reporters, but also in the editors and in the leadership of our organization.
And the last question is, do you have any, like a survey, to know the kind of race? Like, do you do like a survey, like maybe every year? I just need the number. Survey.
Steve, would you mind repeating that? I think we can hear you a little bit better. I think it was something about a survey, correct?
Octavia, is your question about readers or about their employees at Spotlight?
Readers.
Do you do any surveys of your readers to know anything about the diversity among your readers?
Yeah, do you want to handle that?
You can start.
Okay, yeah, we do actually. So there's a couple things. We do track analytics, so we can figure out some basic demographics about who our readers are. It's not as specific as I wish it was. So we're able to see, for example, their gender. We're able to see their age. We're able to see generally what part of the city or county they're reading from. But we do our own reader survey once a year, and we just wrapped up that process actually, where we do ask a more specific question about people's ethnicity and racial backgrounds. And that really does help inform, kind of who's reading San Jose Spotlight. And we're able to see some trends and then make concerted efforts to try to reach more readers in certain parts of the city. For example, East San Jose, where there is a, minority majority. So yes, to answer the question, we do also pay attention to the diversity of our readers as well.
Thank you.
Sure. I also wanted to add, we also have a business advisory council and a community advisory board, and I know at least one member here today is part of that process. And as Ramona also highlighted in the presentation, that they provide some insight and guidance on our coverage to make sure that all communities are covered in our reporting.
Dave Peterson.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. I'm not sure if I'll word this correctly, but it relates to funding and the fact that when I read the various papers, Mercury News, they have their spin on things and they're funded by advertisements and dollars. And if I don't think it is fair, I'll pick another paper that might be funded differently through different advertisers. How do you look out in the future of the funding and know that the balance of that reporting won't be subject to a funder who has worked their way into the bigger dollars and then eventually says, well, I really don't like that opinion or that effort, or I like this story, or my money disappears?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So we actually adopted a policy of editorial independence, and it's on our website, and it states that regardless of how much money anyone contributes, it won't be impacting coverage in any way. So there's a clear firewall between contributions given and coverage. And again, we make that clear. It's a policy that we revert to pretty frequently. And And luckily, we have 5 different revenue streams, and we receive contributions from a lot of folks throughout the community. And again, regardless of how much anyone contributes, it won't be impacting our coverage in any fashion.
I am Dr. Maan. I would like to know about the diaspora communities you covered into your spotlight, because San Jose is host to number of diaspora communities. Thank you.
Could you know? Steve, could you repeat that one for us? My
I will.
apologies, we couldn't hear it.
I will attempt to. I believe the question is about diaspora communities that exist in San Jose and whether you do any stories related to that. All right,
Diaspora communities. Yeah. So if I may ask, specifically, which communities are you thinking of? I know a number of ethnic groups have experienced diaspora, including mine, including Assyrians. But are there specific groups you're curious about?
Pardon?
She asked if there are specific diasporas that you're asking about.
I might not be a selfish one, like Indian diaspora community.
The Indian community.
Here in Silicon Valley.
Did you hear his answer, Ramona?
Yeah, I think you mentioned the Indian community.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'll be honest that we haven't put a specific focus on the Indian community, but certainly, throughout our general coverage, we try very hard to reach out to various groups to make sure that we have represented a lot of those different voices. Often when our editors go through stories, including me, when I edit a story, I'm looking for those diverse voices, and I'll kind of guide our reporters to calling experts, calling people in the field who are, people of color. So we try very hard to include those voices in our work, but we haven't had a specific concerted effort to reach the Indian community. I would love for you to email me if you ever have story ideas. Our contact information is there. I'll put it in the chat again. But if there are certain things happening in the Indian community that you would like us to report on, that you would like us to write about, that you want us to show up to an event, or definitely let us know. And to the best of our ability, with staffing, of course, being a consideration, we'll try our hardest to cover it. We've written about the one story I can think of that touched a little bit with the Indian community was this. Yeah. So, but please stay in touch with us and let us know if there's any other stories that we should be writing or other things going on in your community.
Thank you, Dr. Munn. 2 more questions, Ron Gonzalez and Mark McKenna. And can we go into somewhat of a lightning round? Ron, if you can keep your question brief, and Ramona and Josh, if you can keep your answer brief, and same thing with Mark. Ron, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Ramona and Josh, for your presentation. You talked about the tremendous growth your paper has had, as well as the nonprofit reporting world. Where is this all going to go? Where will San Jose Spotlight be in the next 3 to 5 years? More importantly, where will the industry be?
And if you can keep your answer to about 30 seconds or so, I'd appreciate it.
You got it. Okay. So yes, so San Jose Spotlight is looking to expand and cover other communities around the county. So we hear almost every day from readers that they wish we were in their city, that they wish we could expand. And we are looking right now at that effort to grow our team and to cover other cities in Santa Clara County, in addition to San Jose. We're not leaving San Jose behind.
Thanks, Ramona. Mark.
So we know now that everything local is global and everything global is local. So how do you view the interface between the local coverage you provide and sort of national and global news issues?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Oftentimes when we see a lot of major stories happening around the country or globally, we look for a way to localize it to San Jose audiences and to San Jose readers. So my question to the reporters when they pitch a national idea or a national story is, what does that mean for San Jose? What does that mean for Santa Clara County? And we really try to look at it from a local lens, even if it is a national or international issue.
Thanks, Ramona, for that. I'd like to thank you both for your presentation today. On your behalf, our club will be donating to the Committee to Protect Journalists,
awesome,
which is an independent nonprofit organization that promotes press freedom worldwide. They defend the rights of journalists to report the news safely and without fear of reprisal. I think this is a particularly profound issue right now with what's going on in Russia, and that we all know that there are difficulties around the world in people getting accurate news. So thank you for your presentation. And before you go, a reminder, next week we will have John Ball's friend, Steve Pfeiffer, speaking on the Russia-Ukraine war. He is a former ambassador to Ukraine. This should be one of the high points of our year or decade, maybe. Probably only be superseded by my last meeting when you guys get to say goodbye to me. And that being said, thanks for coming today. I really appreciate all of you coming in person. I hope you'll tell your fellow Rotarians to come in person. It's great to be with all of you. Thanks again.